Hi, this is Luke, and welcome to Something to Cry About, a place for the people who are broken but brave, and it's good to be here, and it's good to be seen by you. It's been about a year since my mother passed away. Okay, just let's just start with a trigger warning, actually, because um, yeah, this could be pretty heavy. And these are just the insights that I can remember. I've been trying to write them down. So it's been a year since she passed, since she's been buried. Um, Obviously, there have been a lot of emotions, a lot of sadness. Very often, I think because we're partially estranged. Like I hadn't actually seen her in years. The last time I saw her was a few years ago. Um, hey, my boy, hey Joe. Yeah. Um, she was in the same town as I was, and I paid for her Ubers so that she can get to the plane station, the airport, to go see her new boyfriend. She didn't want to see me, um, in case I made her sick and then made him sick. This was still time of big scary COVID, but yeah, um, yeah. So I hadn't actually physically seen her um, in about 6 years, and I think the sadness that you feel when you lose someone, because there's not much difference between the person kind of being estranged to them and being disconnected to them permanently, the only difference is the lack of potential that death creates, like the lack of potential that she would see me and be a warm mother or say sorry, treating me poorly, or just to have a good relationship with her, really. Like I always hoped for that, but then she died. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but then they die, and then you realize that's just who they were. They were showing you the whole time. There was never going to be an apology for the times that she shouted in my face or that she beat me for things that I didn't do. Um, yeah, sometimes when people show you who they are, you should listen, even when they are your parents, and you hope so deeply that things can be different. But sometimes that's just who they are, and that's okay. Besides sadness, I felt a tremendous amount of relief, to be honest, and I felt incredible guilt for feeling this relief because I felt, relief is it's a good feeling, but I was relieved that she couldn't hurt me anymore, that there was no more guessing what she was thinking, um, and if I should be worried that she had enough community or friends or food or enough money to care of her kids that she doesn't abandon them. Cats, or pets, or any pets really. She had a habit of doing that. Um, yeah, there was a deep sense of relief that she's gone. That I won't need to wake up in the middle of the night thinking, is she in a really bad place? Is she safe emotionally? Um, yeah, I felt guilty that no one would call me stupid or shout at me. I felt guilty that, you know, that the person who every time she lifted her hand, I would flinch just instinctively. Not to say she was going to hit me. Almost certainly not. That was just the wide kind of response. I felt bad for feeling relief that I don't need to flinch anymore. Um, yeah, and like it was also sadness and like a lot of working through feelings of not feeling worthy enough because how she left, like I spoke to her. I took a little bit of time. I realized that I needed to take some time for myself, and I wanted a better relationship. So I told her, look, I'm going to take a little bit of space and I'll be back. Let me work through this. I was in North Africa and she was in South Africa. So, and after a couple of weeks, I had worked through it and I messaged her back and I was like, okay, look, I would like a relationship. Um, so maybe we should start fresh. So I proposed that every Tuesday we would have a half an hour chat on Zoom or whatever. Um, and like start fresh again. Um, and the first Tuesday happened. Joe, he's jumping on the table. Um, I couldn't really get any answers from her about anything that was happening in her life. But I thought it was a. First chat. Um, and then she killed herself on the Friday. Um, and she cut me out of her will. I was her only son, her only child. She had another kid, but she put that kid up for adoption. Um, yeah, she cut everybody out of the will except for one person, which was very strange. A very passive aggressive, or just aggressive last move. Um, I reject you even in death. Yeah. And for decades, I thought it was because I wasn't good enough. Um, and I thought, okay, well, like she had her own demons. That was the reason. Probably she had an A score. I worked out probably about a 6 or a 7, which is really high. Um, Adverse childhood experiences. Um, and I think she died. She did die 20 or 30 years sooner than she should have. My great grandmother, she lived to over 100. Like we have those genes. Like she still looked young. She could have been like in her late 40s, 50s, but she was in her 60s. Um, yeah. So it was very unexpected. Um, but yeah, she had her own issues, and she followed along the same way that her brother went. And he passed when he was 32. She was 65, I think, 64. Um, did I think she did the best she could? No. Not even really close. I saw her produce amazing things for other people. Helped them with their weddings and their birthdays, and helping set up new homes. But I got none of that. I didn't get 21 keys or helping with any arrangements for my wedding or like, yeah. Um, yeah, she didn't even know how old I was, to be honest. Uh, like we went to a store and the woman asked, okay, well, how old is your child? And she looked at me and she went, 9? I was 14. Almost all the clothes that she bought for me were the wrong size. And then she would sell them and keep the money. So I don't know if that was just because she didn't know how big I was, how old I was, or if she just knew that she can get away with selling stuff and keeping the money, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But for decades, I thought I was not good enough. You can tell I've been writing and trying to get my thoughts out because I knew that if I just ad hoced this thing, um, it would just probably go in circles like we are now. But so for decades, I thought that I wasn't good enough, that if I could be a bit more alert, I could do what she wanted and be how she wanted me to be. Um, I tried to do everything that I possibly could for her. I made her friends. I tried to build businesses for her. Built her websites. I reached out to old friends. I, I did every single thing that I thought that I could. Um, I cleaned the house, set up income streams, but she always kept her cards very close to her. So I didn't even know what she liked. So when it came to her birthday, I always got her biltong, which is like jerky but better. Um, because at least I knew that that was the one thing that I knew that she liked. But everybody likes biltong. It's like chocolate, but better, you know. So it's been a year, and I think I see her a little bit clearer now because I see her as she was, not with the hope that she'd change. Um, and there's been a shift because I used to think that she wanted a kid with my father. She wanted a relationship with my father, but she didn't want a kid. And I don't know if that's true because she loved me enough to remove me from a bad situation when I was very young. She took me and ran when he refused to stop drinking and beating her and taking drugs. Um, at which point he threatened to kill her and kidnap me. And so she ran with me. And then we went, I went to 10 schools, moved 2, 3 houses per school. Every time he found us, we'd have to leave. So she cared about me enough to make sure that I didn't grow up in that situation. But that was almost it. Um, besides taking care of a roof over her head and food, um, that was that felt like it was very much it. And I thought that she didn't love me. And after a year of thinking about it really deeply, I think that she did love me, but she just didn't have. I think there were a few things happening. She wasn't able to love me in the way that I would feel loved, firstly. And secondly, I think I reminded her a lot of her mistakes. I was an albatross around her neck. I was proof of mistakes, maybe, past failures. Um, so yeah, and she didn't trust men. She had been sexually abused. Um, she had a very strange relationship with men where she would basically use them um, for whatever she could, and then throw them away. Um, I saw her do this over and over and over, whether it was trying to get guys to pay for holidays or whatever. Um, and I think, in a weird sense, she maybe saw me as that as well. Because I definitely feel more that I was more of a movable piece to her than a son. Anyway, um, but she was a damaged person, and it was her responsibility to fix herself. It wasn't ever my responsibility, even though I took on that responsibility. I made sure when she was sad that, I tried to keep her even. It's so strange to think, like I have an A score 2 or 3 points higher than she did. Um, and it really drives home that how you view something makes all the difference. You know, I was a stocky child that craved contact because no one at home gave me contact. There was very little touch. There was very little connection. If I asked a question, it wouldn't get an answer. Like I remember setting up an experiment. I wanted to see what would happen if I left sand in a bucket with some water. Um, I was like 3 or 4, and the next day I came and she was like, "No, that's sif. That's poisonous. Don't touch." And I was like, "Why? Why is it poisonous?" And she just ignored. She ignored all my questions. Things were just the way they were, so, and that was it. Um, But luckily, so when I was a kid, I was a stocky kid, and I never felt bullied. That's the point of this little story. Is because I never felt bullied. I went to 10 schools, and they always pick on the new kid, and they always pick on the little kid, and I was always the new kid. And because my birthday is in the beginning, I mean the very very end of the year, and I'm small, I was always the smallest kid, and I was always the new kid, but I never felt bullied because it was contact. It was like, yeah, this person likes me. They're making contact. They picked me up. He threw me against a wall. That was so much fun. And then I'd pick them up and throw them against a wall, and then we'd become friends. But it's very possible she wasn't as robust. So when something happened, I think she broke a little, and she tried very hard to keep it together for as long as she could, until she couldn't. And it was a waste. It was a huge waste of life because that woman, she had so much to give to the world. She had so much ability. I miss her, and I'm I'm glad that both of our suffering is over now. And I truly hope that wherever she is, that she that she can come to rest and have the peace that she never had in life.